Mexican Avenue.
Do you guys hear something weird? Oh, well, maybe it's just on my end. Hello, welcome to another Tuesday edition of Chicago Corner. I'm Deep Dish Pizza enthusiast Edward Heller, and I just thought I'd like to share a little thing with you today. You know, because we always talk about like how it's Taco Tuesday and stuff. And so, did you guys know that Taco Tuesday pretty much originated in like 1933? It says the White Star Cafeteria ran a week-long campaign in order to let locals know that they were offering Mexican tacos every Tuesday. And oh, it looks like we got some breaking news here.
UFOs exist. The U.S. government found quite a number of them, and they are indeed of non-human origin.
What?
Those are the
I knew it! Oh!
Yeah. So there's UFOs and they really exist. With me, as usual, is my co-host in crime on Tuesdays, Jerry Vasilatos, who hosts the Friday show. Jerry said, we got to do the story. And I'm like, of course we got to do this story.
No, I said we need to move the Vienna Frank's Beef opens new location back and do the UFOs is the first story.
You know, well, that was my breaking news story until we heard about the UFOs. And to be fair, that is pretty breaking news, but we could talk about that later. Holy crap, Jerry. So, I mean, I should get into the rest to this video, you think?
Well, I wanted to set it up since I had been following it yesterday and today. So this all has to do with a whistleblower who wanted to bring what was disclosed to him before Congress, but needed to get permission from the Defense Department to present this stuff to Congress. Now, the Defense Department has not corroborated or it has not confirmed nor denied his testimony. But the fact that this new YouTube news channel, News Nation, broke this story, instead of the Washington Post or the New York Times, who'd been approached with this in the past, just clearly speaks to the fact it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody anymore that our national mainstream news sources are completely co-opted by corporations and the government. Okay, because the reason that none of them wanted to go near this was they were worried about being cut off from other news stories. And this has been perpetuated for generations, for decades. Tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. A lot of what this whistleblower has presented has to do with the fact that the reason a lot of this has been kept secret from Congress as well is because of reverse engineering by our aeronautics companies to profit off of this stuff. Extraterrestrial life exists. It's not friendly. It's not happy. Is an interview that I saw actually about an hour ago with the whistleblower, again on News Nation. So that's kind of like an overview of like what's amazing about this. And obviously it comes to nobody's surprise. We've all known that there has to be other intelligent life in the universe. And the fact that it's been covered up for so long from our own leaders, I speculated and I shared with Ed earlier, was it you? No, I was texting somebody about this, that not only has it been covered up for so long, while it should be a matter of public knowledge so that defense contractors can get rich off of reverse engineering technology, but it really does have the potential to shake the foundations, Ed, of world religions and what people believe. Whether it has to do with God or what you worship, because once you get past the idea that we're really not alone, that there are other forces in the universe, it completely usurps and might also add some explanation to ancient cultures coming up with mythologies that may have actually been rooted in trying to make sense of extraterrestrial visitors to this planet. Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't want to go too deep down that hole, but I've heard the Jesus was an alien theory. I don't know what to make of it, but you know, if you have any possible idea that aliens existed and you were thinking about all these things that back thousands of years ago would have been considered miracles, and maybe that was just higher technology or some other type of alien abilities that we don't have, like telekinesis or levitation or any number of things. Yeah, super possible.
Well, I would say it has more to do with the our constant trying to make sense of how were pyramids built, how were ancient civilizations built, angels in the sky, all of the mythology of angels, beings from the sky in biblical literature. I've always thought and ascribed to the fact that that has to do with ancient cultures trying to make sense and give some kind of explanation to things that we know can't happen on our earth. We know people can't float in the air. We know that people can't rise from the grave. We know how complex engineering a modern skyscraper is, let alone trying to figure out how were ancient pyramids and ancient civilizations built, right? Could have been lent a hand from alien intelligence. Now, what is this whistleblower review? Obviously, all this stuff's been covered up for years. It's not like Congress hasn't been trying to like get to the heart of it, but our national security agencies have been covering this up to a degree where it's at the interviewer. In the interview that I saw today was, well, the report that both you and I watched talked about there need to be criminal charges against a lot of the government organizations and principals that have been covering this up for the reasons they've been covering this information up.
Yeah, and I'm honestly not shocked by the government wanting to cover this stuff up anyway. I mean, anyone who's a fan of sci-fi and has watched any of the Stargate series knows that that's essentially how the governments operate. They acquire alien technology, and the last thing they want is the public to know about it. It wasn't until maybe season 7 or 8 that they finally had the international governments say, "Hey, you can't keep this stuff a secret anymore."
Well, the national security angle has to do with, I suppose, that there's some legitimacy into how would the average Earthling, for lack of a better definition.
Oh, let me do you one better here. How would Elon Musk respond to the possible opportunities of acquiring alien technology? And what the hell would he do with it?
Well, who's to say that Elon Musk, Ed, and all of these other aerospace agencies and defense contractors haven't already gotten their hands on this technology? And well, no, I don't doubt it at all. I mean, you can literally see from the Roswell incident back in the 1950s, we were kind of like an analog society. Okay. Now, when a craft had been retrieved at Roswell, which they quickly backpedaled on, even though the news agencies had reported that some kind of a outer spacecraft had been recovered. Suddenly they realized, oh no, we got to backpedal from that. We don't want people to know this, because there was scientific knowledge to be gained from that in our own science and technology. Now, there was a previous incident before 1954. I want to say it was like the late 30s, and I'm forgetting the name of the incident, but it lends credence to the possibility that retrieval of other alien air spacecraft may have had something to do with the development of nuclear power and the nuclear bomb in 1941. So there's this gentleman, I'm forgetting his name now. I've been doing all this show prep today, but he said that this has been covered up for 90 years, which puts us back in 1934. This story. So
1930. Yeah. Okay. Let me get the video back up.
I got to get the show notes up, and we should watch the video. Let me get to the show notes also.
Explosive allegations from a former intelligence officer tonight in a whistleblower complaint that the Inspector General is taking very seriously. 36-year-old Air Force veteran David Grush is exposing what he calls a top-secret military program that has reportedly found wreckage of fully intact UFOs. The government now calls them UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. For years, there have been whispers and rumors that the government had aircraft of non-human origin. This report is the first evidence it might be true. The Inspector General has called Grush's complaint urgent and credible. Tonight, we have a World Television exclusive interview with the whistleblower in which he claims we not only have the aircraft, but the government has been keeping much of it secret from Congress and from the public. News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Enton is here with the story, and this is a blockbuster.
It is a blockbuster. It's really hard to wrap your mind around this. I've been working on this for the past couple of weeks. I'm still having a hard time processing all of it. All over the last couple of years, it sort of became mainstream to discuss UFOs. The government has released videos. They've acknowledged that we don't know what some of this stuff is out there that we have on camera, but this really takes it all to another level. For the very first time, the world is about to hear from a former high-level U.S. intelligence officer who says the government has some of the unidentified craft in its possession. He is revealing these exclusive details about the secret government program.
Peekaboo, Paul Stamets. Welcome to.
I hate that. All right, hold on.
We're going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow.
We have all seen these blurry videos of unidentified flying objects. Video evidence, if you will, that old tales of UFOs may not all be conspiracy theories. In recent years, Congress starting an official U.S. government unidentified aerial phenomena task force, recently renamed the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. And now in a News Nation exclusive, David Grush, an Air Force veteran, former member of that task force, and veteran of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, is formally blowing the whistle on secrets he says no one has ever shared publicly before.
You are one of the most trusted former intelligence officials in the U.S. defense and intelligence establishment.
Yes, I was.
You were trusted with the most intimate secrets.
Yes.
Grush sitting down with award-winning investigative journalist Ross Coulthart, who's reporting for News Nation and has spent years reporting on the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me. They were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grush alleges the U.S. government.
I'm stopping it there just for the moment because I'm like, except for the fact that mainstream media other than News Nation has basically been ignoring and blocking this.
Yep.
This would very much feel to me like it would be a story for distracting you from everything else going on in the world.
Well, good point, Ed, because the fact that they're finally willing to come forward and expose this makes you wonder, what else are they trying to potentially distract us from? Now it's okay. I mean, this is a huge story. This is earth-shaking. And knowing how it can literally shake the foundations of what we talked about with like religion, religious doctrine, the fact that obviously it's been hidden for a long time because of the way they may have been reverse engineering the technology, not just us, other nations. Crystal Ball said on her show with Sagar, Breaking Points, and she was presenting the skeptical view and saying, well, is it really possible that all these nations that may have been cashing in on reverse engineering technology from spacecraft that they've retrieved could keep a secret for so long? And what did Sagar come back with? You're wondering how people can keep a secret for so long. We still don't know who really shot JFK. Okay. Plus, factor in the possibility that any whistleblowers that may have come forward in the past could have been silenced or eliminated in ways we don't know. That's also completely not beyond the realm of reasonable speculation either. Now, I want to also mention, Ed asked me in the private chat, we're not seeing comments in our StreamYard. So I'm going to open up the YouTube and see if
let me just bring them up for a second here. We see you. At least I see you in the YouTube chat. So it's good to see you, Kathy Powers, Arturo, Extra Bulla, Uncle Warren. Good to see you. I was like, this story has Uncle Warren's Ultra Mundus or whatever. What's this show called? Mundus Ultra written all over it. So I mean, this would be a great clip to grab from our show to use on your show if we ever talk about.
I don't think Warren needs us. He covers things so thoroughly.
That's true. He doesn't need us. Plus, he was probably on top of this last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking to see if there was any questions here.
Extra Bulla has a great comment here. Jesus's mother Mary went into the garden with the angel. She went into a lab with a doctor who gave her in vitro. That's how virgins have babies.
Well, yeah. Kathy Power says, I want to believe. She says, Oreo knows.
I think he does. I think he speaks with them. You hear him meowing in the background.
How does one build a border wall in space? Uncle Warren asks. It's a good question. Because that's what's going to happen. It's going to be an international space property race. Well, it probably already is. It's just now we know about it.
Again, yeah. You mentioned before the show that suddenly some stocks have gone up that have to do with aerospace industries after this.
Yeah, Virgin Galactic stock went up today on the news of this stuff. So it's like, it's affecting Wall Street. So that's kind of weird. All right.
Government has recovered non-human craft for decades. He's filed a whistleblower complaint saying he gave what he calls the classified proof to Congress and the Intelligence Community Inspector General. News Nation has confirmed David Grush's credentials and resume. We've not seen or verified the alleged proof he says he's provided to investigators. He says he can't show us the proof for national security reasons. He also tells us he's not seen photos of the alleged craft himself, but has talked extensively with other intelligence officials who have.
If you're
Okay. I'm just seeing in the chat, my friend Jeanette Zalba says, does he remind you of Chet from Weird Science? I'm like, yeah, that guy does look a little bit like, was it Bill Paxton from the Weird Science movie?
right, if you're telling us the truth, everyone, the entire American public has been lied to for decades.
This guy.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which...
And there's a hurricane coming, tornadoes, and we got to look out for all of that stuff, too.
Let him. I want to get to the. I'm waiting
Yeah,
for
I
him.
know.
To give
I'm
further
sorry.
interview.
I just had to get that
Get
in.
to the whys, though, of why that's
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species?
Of course.
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
Or live pilots. Just saying, some of them might have survived the crash.
Area 51 is not a myth. There's got to be a reason that Area 51 has been a national security area for so long. Because if it wasn't, and there weren't really little green men, they wouldn't be that worried about people wandering around that area, would they?
Yeah, right now they're all scrambling to move all the aliens that they moved to Area 52 over to Area 53. Because we knew about Area 51, and so they moved all the aliens over to 52. And so clearly they got to be a couple more steps ahead. Maybe they moved them to 54 by now.
Harder for people to wrap their minds around the concept of a crashed object from somewhere else. It's easier to accept that, yeah, we see things in the sky that we can't explain.
Journalist Leslie Kane broke Rush's whistleblower story this morning in the debrief. Ms. Kane's career has been mainstream and credible, having written a series of reports on UFOs in the New York Times dating back to 2017. He has the credentials, but there's no documents that he's handed over. There's no pictures. And as a journalist, you want to see documents, you want to see pictures. Does that raise a red flag?
Not at all, Brian. I mean, you mean documents that actually describe the craft?
Correct. Yeah, like government documents, or to be able to see it for ourselves.
Of course. Don't we all want that? And the problem with that is all of that information is classified. You know, as we said in the story, everything that Grush told Congress and told the Inspector General of both the IC, the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and the Department of Defense Inspector General, all of that information is classified.
In 2017, Kane reported exclusively in the New York Times that the Pentagon had a secret UFO program. 3 years later, the Pentagon confirmed her story. Her latest report is even more explosive, but Kane says she has multiple sources who back up Grush's story.
I believe it because of all the sources I have who have told me the same thing. So who am I to doubt these very, very high-level people who have been inside these programs for decades, have done their work, and are all telling me the same thing? I mean, I don't think there's some kind of conspiracy among all these people who don't know each other to make something like this up.
So I've got to be blunt about this. You're not making this up. This is not a lie.
No, absolutely not.
Because everybody watching this right now is looking at your face. They're going, is this guy for real?
I am.
Is this guy for real?
Why would he come? Well, okay, I'm about to say, why would he make this stuff up? Getting back to Warren's point, why now? Why the distraction? But do you know how much this guy's got to lose, and how many other people have not stepped forward with stuff that they've known because they've worried about threats to their lives or the lives of their families or other loved ones? This is a big deal. I mean, look, Tara Reid just took off from the United States because she was threatened that she couldn't stay here as a whistleblower, right? Whistleblower. Yeah. This is not a culture that really celebrates or honors whistleblowers anymore as it did in the 1970s. You know, with Watergate and Daniel Ellsberg, Woodward and Bernstein, and trying to get through to corruption. Something changed along the way, and it's the national security state that doesn't want this stuff out for the benefits of the ruling elites.
I'm for real. And I'm sitting here at great personal risk and obvious professional risk by talking to you today.
And just within the last 10 minutes or so, the Pentagon has released a statement to News Nation
You're gonna
about
love
this
this.
report. They say to date, Arrow has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently. Arrow is committed to following the data and its investigation wherever it leads. Arrow, working with the Office of the General Counsel and the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, has established a safe and secure process for individuals to come forward with information to aid Arrow in its congressionally mandated historical review. Arrow's historical review of records and testimonies is ongoing and due to Congress by June 2024, and Arrow welcomes the opportunity to speak with any former or current employee or contractor who believes they have information relevant to this historical review. And Elizabeth, we know that David Grush, he's filed that whistleblower complaint. He's been on the record under oath testifying to many of these things that he said in our report tonight.
Right, and it's important to point out that this statement from the Pentagon, from Arrow, Grush is alleging that this top secret program is keeping it a secret from Arrow. So.
Yeah, exactly. And if Grush is, what he's saying is true, the spokespeople, all of those folks at that level wouldn't even know this was going on anyway.
All right, I got to ask you, he has a compelling story to tell. Very little of it seems like firsthand knowledge. Isn't he just repeating what somebody else has told him or somebody else has showed him?
Yes, that is what he's doing. But he says he's talked to a number of people who are in very, very high level positions. He also had basically the highest level of classified material information that he was able to receive. We went back and checked over, his history, all of his credentials, check out completely. Unfortunately, there's
in addition, a couple people have come forward publicly to vouch for him, people who are high ranking.
They have.
Yeah, so they're basically confirming the guy is very credible, right? I've got there's other videos linked in the show notes. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, but no. Some of them, it's just more videos talking about how, like the fact that this guy is credible. This stuff really exists.
The question is, what's next now? There's going to be a lot more information revealed this week in regards to this story to pay attention to.
Yeah, they keep posting new video clips and stuff, like updating information like Congress is going to be investigating. We don't know what's going to come of it, because you know how they do these little committees and stuff, and they do these what do they call them? I forget what the hell they call them, where they just they basically bring some people in and broadcast on C-SPAN, and then 10 people see it. You know what I'm talking about. But at this point you can't deny it anymore. So how long till mainstream media starts?
The skeptics have got to stop being skeptical and mocking those who've been demanding answers for so long, or throwing around the phrase conspiracy theorist like that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
There is a conspiracy. There always has been many conspiracies in American society to cover things up and keep people stupid.
Yeah, I know. I honestly, I think that Taco Tuesday might also be a conspiracy, but I'm still looking into that one.
I'm going to have to rely on you to share the comments, Ed, because for everybody seeing my screen go light and dark, I had an internet guy come over from RCN today, and you know what he told me, Ed? All those 3 previous visits, everything needed to be rewired, and they never did it.
Okay.
But he did. But he didn't set up my Wi-Fi so that I can get my 5G so that my key light works. So I've literally got I've got a browser on each monitor with white screens to give me some light. Otherwise, I would be dark, as you guys have seen me flickering out, which means I can't open up the YouTube frame because it's a black screen. It'll screw up my lighting.
That's okay. I've got you guys on the chat window here. I can bring it up a little bit. Yeah, let's see. Who do we have here? Scroll up. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, Kathy Power says it would be novel if we were ever told the truth. Yeah, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it?
I mean,
Shit's
yes.
gonna fan this week, Kathy.
Warren says, yes, we have aliens. No, you can't see them.
Do you know what's have you seen the movie Capricorn 1?
Sounds familiar.
It's a movie from the late 1970s about
that would explain why I can't remember that.
About the first manned mission to Mars, which was faked. And the reason NASA faked the mission to Mars was because they would have lost all of their funding. Okay. And the astronauts decide to go along with it until the reentry capsule burns up in the atmosphere. And they have to like chase down and try to kill the 3 astronauts who are going along with the game out in the desert. So I guess I'm going to spoil it. By the end of the movie, one of the astronauts survives and he makes it back to his own funeral where the news is covering it and stuff. Oh. All the scientists from NASA, the key bad guy, it's like he's got some splaining to do. And Hal Holbrook played that the NASA scientist. So I'm thinking, Ed, right now, as all the shit starts to come out and hits the fan, there are going to be some people in the national security agencies who are going to have that look on their face like, sorry, can't hide it anymore, and you're going to be held accountable.
Arturo is still skeptical. He says, don't believe, sorry.
How could you not believe, Art? How could you not believe?
Maybe, he just needs to probably see it, when he's actually there.
I'm more willing to believe in this than I am religious doctrine, because there's a scientific element when you look at every star in the sky and know that every star in the sky is a sun with planets orbiting it. And how many thousands of stars can we see with our naked eyes in the sky? Planets surrounding all of them, which means we're not alone. There's got to be life on whatever planet surrounds any of those stars we look at in the night sky.
Yeah, Jeanette asks, but why this guy? Is he out for something? We don't know what his motives are for releasing this information, other than maybe just being compelled to, since he already testified under oath to, and asked for permission to do it, compelled to let everybody else know.
Once he starts spilling the beans to Congress, it's not going to be a secret anymore. I think that's why that's one of the reasons they had to fess up and acknowledge this without confirming or denying what he is sharing from what's been shared with him. Now, this guy used to give presidential daily briefings. This guy is like really high up in the security apparatus in DC. So I think his credibility is unimpeachable.
Have and this article first came out this morning, and I think it's interesting that there hasn't been any sort of effort to discredit what he has said either from the Defense Department.
So interesting. So what happens, and have we had any reaction, by the way, from members of Congress who have been taking this seriously in the last couple of years? We've seen congressional hearings. We've seen NASA's hearing just about a week ago on UFOs or UAPs, whatever you prefer to call them. We've seen the DNI give a briefing to the White House on this. When we've been hearing whispers and rumors for years. I remember even former President Trump, when he was in office, sort of saying, oh my gosh, if you knew what I knew about UFOs.
Yeah.
So there's always been this intrigue.
There has. And think about it, Elizabeth, if you go back 15 or 20 years, if we were sitting here talking about UFOs, people would think that we were nutty. Now it's gotten to the level of where it is somewhat accepted because the government has come forward to a certain extent and acknowledged that there are these videos that exist. The Navy has released the videos themselves and said, we're not sure exactly what this is that we're seeing. Of course, what Gresh is saying really just sort of takes it to the next level.
Boy, it sure does. It's almost impossible to believe. All right, Brian Netton, thanks so much.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You will stop speaking. You will stop speaking. You're full of crap. And And that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Yeah, see, Lori doesn't she doesn't believe either, Art. What was next? What do we want to get into? There we got a video of the ex-Navy pilot talking about how Congress must probe the whistleblower's UFO claims. Should we show that one?
Sure. Yeah, let's show that real quick because we do have a special guest joining us.
That's true.
Returning Chicago Quarter alumni, Lainey Peterson, and we don't want to keep her waiting too long.
Okay. All right. Let's get this one out of the way, and I'll put it on 1.25 speed. All right.
Complaint alleges that not only has our government had these craft of, quote, non-human origin, but that it's keeping it secret. And for decades, the Air Force discredited sightings of UAPs by pilots like you. Does it sound possible to you that that kind of secrecy is still happening, this kind of disinformation, this time around aircraft?
Well, that just seems to be the case. I've been reporting on unidentified objects since 2014 and 2015 off of the coast of Virginia Beach. And still, that conversation hasn't elevated to the point where pilots still feel comfortable reporting. So yes, I still believe that there is secrecy and stigma associated with this topic. And this conversation that we're having today, I think, is a massive step in the right direction.
Can you describe exactly what you saw when you were flying in the air that night?
Certainly. We were seeing dark gray or black cubes inside of clear spheres. And we were seeing these all over our working areas on a near daily basis, sometimes coming as close as 500 feet to our aircraft as we were flying our operations. We were seeing this not only off the eastern seaboard, but we were seeing this down south off Jacksonville, Florida, as well as off the west coast. Now, with the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office reporting that we're seeing spheres globally that are proceeding from 0 to 2 Mach on a regular basis, we still haven't really figured out what those objects are.
And you, largely to your efforts and a few others, and people are now speaking out, pilots are now speaking out. But in general, especially a couple of years ago, but you say even now still to a certain extent, what are pilots told when they come back and say, oh my God, look at what I saw and what I recorded in my cockpit camera?
Yeah, a lot of times it doesn't even get to that point, unfortunately, Elizabeth. Pilots aren't taking it back to their companies, to their safety offices and reporting this. Typically what I'm hearing from aircrew that are calling and reporting is that they're seeing objects, they're typically reporting it to air traffic control, and that's really where the conversation ends. There'll be a number of other aircraft that will report the same thing in the same vicinity, but there's no further action taken. It was a bit disappointing to hear the FAA chief talk. It was a little disappointing to hear the FAA representative at the latest public meeting that the NASA independent study team had stated that he was only familiar with maybe 4 or 5 reports of UAP from their FAA controllers. I'm personally hearing reports from pilots that they're seeing objects on almost a nightly basis off the Northern Pacific as well as Northern Atlantic.
Almost a nightly
basis? That's been happening for several months.
Can you pause it for a second, Ed?
Yeah.
And this is not news. I mean, it's what strikes me is how they'll always dismiss those who've claimed to have seen unidentified objects as crackpots. But why would all these pilots have been very willing to go on the record forever. And we're just meant to dismiss them as being crackpots. They're seeing things. They don't know what they're seeing. You know, they're piloting professionals, but even they're dismissed. Hey man, the lid is off. We're going to find out a lot more. I find this fascinating and it's exciting. A little scary, but you have to be prepared and braced for that because I would rather get to the truth and know what's real and why it's been covered up for so long so that we can deal with it rather than continue to live in ignorance or be marginalized as we're not smart enough to be able to understand or deal with these things that everybody I think should know about. And are there national security issues? Sure. But do those national security issues really trump what the public should know? I think the national security issues, Ed, have more to do with the reverse engineering of the technology to benefit financially the aerospace industry and the defense industries more than anything else. That's the national security that they want to protect.
Well, and then also there's, probably the military superiority situation too. When you have technology that's far beyond anything anyone else has, all of a sudden you're ridiculously huge and enormous and 10 times bigger than every other country's military budget is enhanced even more by alien technology. Or maybe that's why the budget's so big. because they're trying to reproduce it.
Very, very good speculation there, Ed. We always have money for the military and for defense, and we never question it. And all this money that's disappeared. So remember, prior to 9/11, wasn't it Rumsfeld who had announced several trillions of dollars had disappeared, and then 9/11 like happened, which kind of got rid of that story? But all of the investigation into like where that money went suddenly there was the distraction of the terrorist incident. So, as we're constantly like looking at where's all this money going in military spending, maybe this is our answer.
Yeah, it's very possible. I think you guys can get all the other stuff out of our show notes. We had planned to do, well, at least I had planned to do a little extra coverage of this, but we've basically exhausted this, and the 11-minute interview was pretty comprehensive. So we're gonna move forward with the show and cover another topic, which actually is an interesting one to cover, and I'm glad that we're able to welcome back a good friend and colleague, Lainey Peterson, to help us out with this one. Lainey, good to see you.
Hey,
an esteemed colleague, Ed. You forgot.
Esteemed, highly esteemed.
Our highly esteemed and hopefully not steamed colleague.
Well, I am steamed after reading this story.
And for those of you unaware of who Lainey Peterson is, she is one of the original founders of Chicago Corner, along with being a co-host on the Chicago Wine Report.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also does a whole lot of other stuff that she can share at her leisure with us. And also she has a Streamcat producer too named Ned.
Yeah, here's Mr. Ned. All right. Well, it's good to see you guys again. It's good to be on Chicago Corner again and seeing our friends out there. It's just wonderful to be back. But the reason I'm here is because I shared a story with you guys, and you guys said, "Hey, do you want to come and talk about this?" This is something that just kind of blew my mind. This particular story is just one of these, stories, and the fact that we are learning about it is a confluence, I think, of several factors that probably have not come together for a lot of people who have fallen victim to this sort of practice. So here's the situation. First of all, the reporting on this, in my opinion, is not that great. The stories that we have, a lot of terminology is getting thrown about that's contradictory. The other issue is that people need to understand is that DCFS, Department of Children and Family Services, and this is true, I think, pretty much across the country, is it's basically recused itself from having to work with the media, because they say, well, we have to protect the privacy of children. Mm-hmm. Now, look, I kind of get that, but it also means that journalists can't do their job to hold these agencies accountable. So here's what happened. There is a girl, a 9-year-old girl named MM. She has been and her sister have been in the child welfare system for a significant amount of time. 4 years ago, when MM was 5 years old, she was put into a psychiatric facility. And when her treatment was finished, the psychiatric facility said, okay, she's being medically released. DCFS didn't have a place to put her. They kept her in the psychiatric facility. Now, because of the girl's status, Medicaid is supposed to pay for her medical bills. However, since the psychiatric stay was not medically necessary because DCFS didn't have a place to put her, Medicaid refused to pay her bill, which was something like $34,000. Which, I mean, in and of itself is an indictment against just so many problems in one story here, But we move on from there. Okay, we move on from there. DCFS was on the hook for that, and DCFS decided to sniff around. Well, DCFS knew that this little girl's father had died back in 2014, which means that he probably died either before or right after she was born. And her father, as her father's child, she was receiving his Social Security benefits, their survivor benefits.
Well, I can see where this is going.
DCFS decided to help itself and took the $34,000 out of this little girl's benefits. And actually, so far, the benefits have accumulated to about $118,000, and DCFS has taken all of it.
Motherfuckers. It's shameless.
With no accounting for this. Now, look, the whole point of survivor's benefits is to provide for the child. And if she was in the care of somebody, that money would be going for that purpose. But in this particular case, they actually took specifically $34,000 for a medically unnecessary stay that DCFS ordered. And you have to keep in mind that these kids, the children who are age out of the system, as they say, typically speaking, don't fare well. They tend to have drug and alcohol problems. They tend to have problems. They're incarcerated. In many cases, they're much more likely to become homeless. And having a nest egg when they get out, at least some of that money being put aside for them, would make an enormous difference in their ability to move on and become, as they say, productive members of society. Now,
because normally a parent who's earning a living is putting that money aside or caring for that child. That's the whole point of it.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I understand using some of the funds to pay for a child's care, but if the child is a dependent on the state, I think the priority there is that the state has to take responsibility for that. And there is now a law that came too late for this little girl, but that if a child is receiving what they call supplemental security income benefits, which is a separate program from Social Security, but it is administered by the Social Security Administration. If the child is receiving those benefits, some of that has to be conserved for the kids so that it's there for them once they age out of the system. In this case, though, there has been no accounting on the part of DCFS for what it has done with $118,000 over the past 4 years. And we know that at least 34 of it went to a medically unnecessary stay because DCFS couldn't manage to find a placement for her. Now, this little girl, I guess, and her sister are now in a home. They're in a foster home. The foster parents want to adopt them. And they want to move forward with this, but they want to get this situation sorted out because once they adopt her, the connection between them and DCFS is severed, and it could be even harder to try and get DCFS to have any kind of accountability. So what has happened in this case is that we have in Cook County a public guardian, and if you look at what the public guardian's office does, and they even say it, that they advocate for the people who have been left totally behind by society, the disabled, the elderly, and of course children. So and this is actually very amusing. If you go to their Facebook page, the Cook County Public Guardian has basically come out and said DCFS seems to pass up every opportunity it gets to do right by its kids. And they are actually suing. And they're saying to DCFS, give her the money for this medically unnecessary stay back. DCFS is refusing to do it. Now they're also saying to DCFS, you need to give us an accounting for the $118,000 that you've been spending over this 4 years. Just give us an accounting. I think that's reasonable. Yeah. If you are in a position of trust like that, basic accountability is that you give an accounting. What has this been spent on? How do you justify these expenditures? And I don't have, again, if she was in foster care and the foster parents were getting money for her care, that's one thing. But it's quite another thing if they're just throwing money away. We have one case. If you go down on DCFS's, if you go on the Cook County Public Guardian's Facebook page and you scroll down, there's a case where a DCFS worker was blowing money for the kids on gambling junkets.
Oh, Jesus.
All right. The point is, if you've got an agency that has complete control over these kids. They have access to the children's funds, and there is no media accountability because they've decided that they want to protect the privacy of the children. There's no media accountability. And you're dealing in some cases with six figures that they have at their disposal to play around with.
Where's that money going?
Yeah, I mean, how is it being spent? Where is the justification? Who is signing off on this? And in this case, DCFS, and again, I understand that DCFS is totally underfunded and understaffed as well. But the reality is that the mistake was not the girls. It was not the girl's mistake. She did not agree to, at the age of 5, to be left.
Laney, we've reported on several DCFS scandals regarding kids. Whoa, sorry. I was trying to bring one of them up here to reference because we talked about them in the past. Children dying in agency care, children being put in foster homes where they were sexually abused. DCFS in Illinois is a house of horrors. So, this shouldn't come at any surprise, although it should come with absolute outrage at the fact that it just can't be tolerated anymore. And you wonder what are our state representatives doing when these stories constantly come out to this point here with this story now. There's no reform and there's nothing changing.
Well, and Charles Goldberg, he's the Cook County public guardian. And he is basically saying, he's basically saying, this is the first time we know that there's this practice of them raiding the kids' benefits. This is the first time we know when it's happened because DCFS failed to take a child out of an institution where she didn't need to be and where they were billing at $34,000 a month.
Is this because they are understaffed or they're just absolutely criminally negligent?
Here's what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to say. I know there's many of these organizations that are mismanaged, understaffed. There are oftentimes very good people doing very good work or doing the best that they possibly can. The thing is that if something is this broken, all right, just throwing up your hands and saying, I can't do it, I can't do anything about it, at some point you become complicit. All right.
Yeah. It's unacceptable because that's what
unacceptable. You have become complicit.
Responsible for.
And so, what I would say here is the workers need to stand up and walk out. There was when Donald Trump took office back in 2017. And there was that whole thing with the so-called Muslim ban that was taking place. And they were stopping the immigration and refusing visas and that sort of thing. People were coming down on ICE, Homeland Security and ICE. And there was an immigrants' rights group that popped up and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. If you don't want to be, if you don't want to be to work anymore for this agency, we will give you help to get you out. We can't guarantee you a job, but we have a confidential hotline and we have standing by career counselors and certified resume writers who will work with you to help you get a different job. And I think at some point when you have something that's this broken, it becomes necessary. It becomes necessary for the people to walk out and say, we have to raise this much of a stink. If it's not working, it's not working. I know a social worker, a very experienced social worker, who told me flat out, she said, look, I have to look when I'm looking for people, when I'm looking at families, when I'm looking at the kids, all I can say is I have to have a minimum standard of parenting. And by the way, that standard, the minimum standard of parenting, applies to the foster homes. So when a child is being taken from one home and put into a foster home, there's not really a guarantee of any superior level of parenting there. This is a system that's fundamentally broken. Now, I agree with Kathy Powers. Yeah, fund them. I absolutely agree. But I don't know that as long as business as usual continues to happen and people continue to go to work, what's going to happen, that nothing is going to change. If everybody were to walk out and say, we can no longer be a part of this, maybe there would be. The reality is that we've got you know, a whole lot of kids in this country who are and a whole lot of households that are not prepared to take care for their kids. We have a lot of kids who are suffering, and these kids are vulnerable. And when they have a little ray of light, when in this case, because her father was dead, she was eligible for Social Security income. They just, you know, this agency goes ahead and raids it. And in her case, she was fortunate enough that she had a family that was willing to adopt her and willing to advocate for her, and they were willing to uncover what happened here, and that we have a Cook County public guardian who isn't standing for this nonsense. But you have to think, and he points this out in the interviews that he did, the public guardian, he said, this is the first time we've been made aware of it. How many times has this happened where you have kids whose, you know, parents, benefits that the parents earned through their work, benefits that those parents earned through work was provided for their children, and their children are aging out of the system with nothing because the agency that was supposed to be looking after these kids spent all their money. And that agency is not being held to account for how it's spending.
I think there's some clear organizational dysfunction going on at the DCFS, and you're right. It's like if the workers need to walk out so that they make them understand that there needs to be a change.
And I think we're going to subclip Laney's suggestion here. And Laney, if you can provide the hashtags, we'll put it on our Twitter account. So everybody that needs to walk out will look at this suggestion, and hopefully it will help urge some action since we're trying to find the solutions here. And that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. You know, and the thing that's happened is that if you look at some of the reporting on this, they're saying this is a girl's inheritance. It's not an inheritance. It's something that she is absolutely entitled to. That, you know, her father worked, and that money has gone into an account to provide for her, and I guess her sister, and DCFS has taken it all. The reality is that these kids are incredibly vulnerable, and even though these kids hopefully will be adopted by what appears to be a very loving family, the reality is they probably are going to need additional supports. They lost their parents at a very young age. It sounds like there were some issues there, and for them to be able to, you know, for their parents, their adoptive parents, to have that security, knowing that that the kids will have something for them there, that they can get those kids off to the best start in life. And you have a state agency that's willing to deny kids this. That's a problem. There you go.
Yeah, it's a breakdown of the social safety net, and it's an abuse of the social safety net when you have departments that are supposed to be looking out for your welfare.
Well, I want to see the accounting. I want to see the accounting. Yeah. Why is that such an outrageous request here?
It's not at all. And Kathy Powers says there are so many children overstaying in psychiatric facilities because there is no place to put them. And I think Jerry and I had covered a story a while back when they're also keeping kids in prison in juvie.
In juvenile hall.
For the same reason.
Yeah, juvenile hall, and because they're sitting in offices. I mean, think about what we've got with the migrant crisis right now, with everybody living in
field houses.
But they're also saying they're saying in police precincts. I mean, this whole thing is just unbelievable. But there are places to put these people. There are places to put these kids, and they could, for example, work harder to recruit, foster families.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, you know why they're not? It's not a priority for them.
It's not a priority for anybody.
They don't care, and they're supposed to.
Absolutely, nobody cares.
That's what all the tax dollars are going towards. And when we've got to, trying to find our solutions, it's because the people who are tasked with doing the job we're supposed to do it are dropping the ball, which is why we even saw with the migrant situation. Everybody in every community is coming out to help these migrants. And it's like, well, where's the city's plan? Well, they didn't have a plan because they never prioritized it, never thought about it. And it's left to like the good nature of people in the community to do things, but it's really not their job. And that's not to mean that they want to neglect that potential responsibility. Ultimately, it comes to somebody's got to do it because the infrastructure that's there broke down, was never there, never prioritized it. While
here's the thing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
People are not disposable, but we treat them as if they are. All right. And we've got the migrant situation here because Abbott and DeSantis have been, busing people like cargo and dumping them places to make a political point.
That's all it comes down. That's all it's about.
Mm-hmm.
I was volunteering one day when this started happening. I was volunteering. A local church has a warehouse where they were sorting out stuff to support these folks. And there were kids just sitting there at in the warehouse that were right off the bus, kids alone, that had been basically shipped over from Texas. Sweet, polite kids. And they had just been treated this way, and this is how we treat and these aren't migrant children.
It's
these
not
are
just
children,
the migrants, though, Lainey. It's
everybody.
Almost here in Chicago, okay?
It's everybody. It's everybody. We have whole groups of people who we treat as disposable.
Anyone who's vulnerable is disposable.
Yeah, absolutely disposable. And you have people, as you pointed out, Jerry. We have these people who patch stuff together. You've got community organizations, faith-based organizations, some of them with good intentions, maybe some without good intentions, and some who have good intentions but are completely frickin' incompetent. This is just a symptom.
Jim makes a good point. It's been an epic failure of leadership among the professional managerial class all the way to the top. And Jim, how do we change it? What's this? I mean, again, what is the solution? We vote. We put people in office who are supposed to make the right selections, and they still constantly fail to the point where we're here discussing this, trying to figure out how do we fix it if the people who are supposed to be fixing it, whose job it is, aren't. And people are vulnerable.
Hashtag PMC walkout. Here's the thing. PMCs suck. And I put myself in that group when it comes right down to it. That's my social class. That's my background. That sort of thing. And we've completely failed. We virtue signal, but we failed.
Professional managerial class, PMC.
This is just, what the... Yeah,
poor Rainey.
What my demographic has managed to do in this country is really quite something else. And
that's not your demographic. Look, that's not your demographic. You're part of a managerial class that's trying to do things. It's like we talk about with like law enforcement. There are good cops, but it's the bad ones that are making the good ones look bad. And it's the same in the professional managerial class. But it seems there are more incompetent ones than capable ones, like yourself, that either don't give a damn or were completely ill-equipped to even be assigned those responsibilities to begin with.
Yeah, and like Lainey said, any group, well, I'll say any group, but like Lainey said, if you're not going to be part of the solution, you become complicit, right?
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. but
no, I mean, it's right there. And for example, the fact that DCFS and Child Protective Service agencies have been able to get away, and this has probably been going on for about 30 years at this point, or close to it, that they have basically said that we are shielded from the media, that we cannot speak. We have decided that we cannot speak to the media about children because this is in the best interest of the children. They have shielded themselves with this language of best interests of the children, children's privacy, children's rights. But what it means is that there's no genuine accountability. The whole thing is that one of the reasons why we have the media is to shine a light when on government and on systems when those systems fail to maintain accountability and compliance.
But
you have a child welfare system in this country has decided it's above journalistic investigation. They've decided that they don't need to be transparent, and they've shielded themselves. Again, it's a disgraceful situation. And frankly, again, the media needs to rise up and say, hey, we can't do this. We can have standards. Look, the law, if you notice, for example, there's a very long-standing history, practice in American media history of not identifying the names, not listing, printing the names or releasing the names of sexual assault survivors. And that is a system that works. The names are public. They're part of the public record, but the media doesn't publish them. And that system has worked, when it comes right down to it, very well for a very long time. The truth is, I think it could happen with kids as well. You could do this. You could do the same thing. Responsible media practices could protect the interests of the kids, while making sure that somebody outside the government system is looking at these agencies and making sure they're doing the right job. There are so many failures here. There you go.
Well, I was about to say too, it seems to also be more mass media is not doing their job pressing the questions, and it seems to be like more independent media and more independent investigative journalists or news reporters that are exposing this stuff, because even our mass media channels are complicit. So
it is, and there's only so much you can do. But part of me really just wishes that there had been a greater outcry when these rules shielding child protective agencies came into fashion. I really just wish that there had been a greater outcry, and because it didn't happen, and I think it's been very damaging.
Where's this girl's situation now? I think was there a fundraiser or
I don't think there's been a fundraiser. I think what's happening is it's now in court. Okay. The Charles Goldberg, the Cook County Public Guardian, has basically sent a letter. They've gone to court. They've gotten it in front of a judge. DCFS is asking for more time, so that's where it is right now. The parents would like the foster parents would like to go forward with the adoption. The kids would like to go forward with the adoption, which is understandable. But they want to get this. They want to get this straightened out. I don't know that she's going to get back the huge amount of money, which is the huge amount of money at this point, that is $90,000 or whatever the heck it's been that they've taken. But if she can get that $34,000 back, that would be kind of nice.
I misread the show notes and your links. I thought that one of these pages, I thought the Newsbreak page, it looked like a GoFundMe page. That's why I made that mistake.
The Newsbreak page is republishing the CBS News story that Lainey sent us this afternoon.
Okay.
And the problem is also, frankly, if they were to do a GoFundMe right now, because she's still in state custody, they could probably take that money.
They would take that money. Of course they would.
So they can't do it unless they put it in a trust.
Well, they could give it to the adoptive parents, possibly. I mean, that because they're not in DCFS custody. But the point is, if anybody's trying to provide for this kid, the kid was provided for by her father's work record. And that money was there, he earned that, that Social Security benefits, he paid into the system, and that was earned to benefit the kids. And again, I don't necessarily have a problem with some of it being spent while they're kids, and even if they're in state care. I do have a problem when it's $34,000 for a 1-month hospital stay, which is what it costs to get psychiatric care in this country if you don't have insurance, apparently.
And can I share something really quickly on that note? A friend of mine contacted me because a friend of her boyfriend had gone into a private mental health facility because he was having suicidal thoughts. And he went in and thought that, he would get some counseling. They immediately made him stay and started billing him. And he couldn't get out. He couldn't get out. And she was asking me if I could guide her to some lawyers or any attorneys that might, because I know some legal people. And they said, well, was it a private or a public facility? It was a private one. I'm just like, well, he probably signed something on the way in and they started the meter. And he had to find a lawyer to help him get out of there because, once he got the counseling, he didn't expect that they were going to lock him in there and hold him a couple nights and then start compiling a bill for him.
So that's another racket that somebody's going to have to look into.
Well, one of the things I said was like that, if anything's going to add to his depression and his anxiety, the fact you go in for some counseling because you had some difficulties and you had some suicidal thoughts, and then they decide to keep you there against your will for a couple days and start billing you, and you don't know if your insurance is going to cover this. Wow. You want to make a person's situation even worse, that when they come out, then they've got like however many thousands of dollars for the care he was in there. And I said, unfortunately, I don't know if this would have happened if he'd gone into a public mental health clinic, but those are gone since those have all been shut down if somebody needs some counseling. So, this guy didn't know going into a private clinic. Well, first of all, he didn't know he was going to get locked in there for several days. But
if a person,
go ahead, Lainey.
If a person is threatening self-harm, they do have a responsibility to take action. The issue, So that
he didn't expect, despite the fact he went in for some counseling, he didn't expect they were going to assess him because he wasn't. I guess it was up to the professionals to determine if he was a threat to himself. But still, when he felt that he was good to go, it's like, no, we're keeping you here, and he had nothing to say about it. But while the meter was running,
and that is an issue. That absolutely is. And you also remember, and this is not mental health, but they had the drive-by baby deliveries. When this was something that was a trend probably around 20 years ago or so. Eventually it stopped because there was too much pressure. But basically women were giving birth and being tossed out of the hospital, sometimes the same day, sometimes the day after. Sometimes they would have, they still had tubes in them, and they were being just, discharged because the insurance companies didn't want to pay. Now, eventually, I want to say that legislation started getting passed that it allows women a certain amount of time after giving birth to remain in the hospital. They can leave at any time, but they have a right to stay there, and insurance has to pay for it. But when you consider how many so-called medical decisions are being made on the basis of availability of funds through insurance, that is really something. And
I think that may be getting us to the root of the problem here in America, is that we do not have a comprehensive national health care system that is free at the point of service. I know that this story is an ongoing thing, and Lainey, I'm so glad you got a chance to join us to help us get through it. And I'm hoping that if we get an update, we'll be able to bring you back on for that and any other story you want to talk about.
Well, we got to have Lainey back much more at her ability to join.
At your convenience, of course.
Well, I'll do the best that I can here. I'll be following this. Yes, I find stuff, I'll let you know, and if I'm able to do so, I'll pop on and we'll talk about them. But as I said, I think this is a story that kind of distills a lot of what talk about on Chicago Corner. The disposability of people, the issue of profit as a motivation for just about anything in this country. It's an issue.
Thank you, special contributor Lainey Peterson, and we hope you get back again soon.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Lainey.
Bye.
All right, well, that was great to have Lainey on to talk about that. I know that we have more to talk about things going on that affect people, because that's a lot of the stories we covered, Jerry. This is all this stuff. It's like mostly it's affecting people in the Chicago area, but sometimes it's like all over the place. But this one's local, and this one is an update from earlier today. And fortunately, I did get a little bit of a recap from WGN, and this is about the General Iron getting the court to allow them to get a permit to do metal recycling. And we got a huge problem with pollution,
environmental racism.
Yes, environmental racism. Basically, we get like recycling plants and places like that setting up shop in poor and minority neighborhood areas or in the vicinity of those. And here's one of those stories with a continuing saga.
Protesters are vowing to fight a judge's order when it comes to a controversial metal recycling plan on the southeast side.
WGN's Julian Cruz live at City Hall with details on that. Hi, Julian. Hi, Micah. You may remember the Lori Lightfoot administration denying the permit application back in 2022, but
now she only denied it after pressure was applied for her to deny it, because originally she gave them the go-ahead, which is why we're in this mess in the first place.
Yep.
The
One of the many
company
gifts
for
she left
General
behind.
Iron,
Yeah,
RMG, in a surprise development clearing a major hurdle after an administrative judge ruled in the company's favor.
We want equal environmental protection, just like any other neighborhood in the city of Chicago.
Cheryl Johnson and a coalition of environmental groups, aldermen, state legislators, and concerned Southeast Side residents in an all too familiar position.
Sad to say, once again, we're here again fighting General Iron.
The setback, despite a landmark compliance agreement requiring the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and the City of Chicago to overhaul policies that govern permitting when it comes to industry near residential areas.
We just want to be able to go outside and breathe clean air, be able to go outside and play with our children.
We should have the equal rights to clean air, clean water, clean land, just like Lincoln Park.
The metal recycling facility no longer operating in Lincoln Park, with the city of Chicago denying parent company RMG a permit to operate a large recycling facility on the southeast side. But last week's surprise reversal by a Chicago administrative judge prompting a strong reaction from Mayor Brandon Johnson in a written statement. We will immediately appeal the administrative judge's ruling and continue our fight to uphold our authority under the law to make decisions that protect the environment, health, and quality of life for residents of the 10th Ward and all environmental justice communities.
I'm pausing it there just to remind all of you that we do have a little thing we're doing called Brandon Bingo, and you can head over to chicagocornertv.com and click on the link to get your Brandon Bingo card. And it's things that we're predicting, we're thinking were going to happen within the first month of Brandon Johnson being mayor. One of our predictions was to undo a Lori Lightfoot policy. This is a policy in progress here. This is not completion, but I just wanted you guys all to get, go and get your Brandon Bingo card, bookmark that thing, and come back to it every time you come and watch us, and remind us in the live chat to check our Brandon Bingo card if you think one of the things comes up that you get to check off on your card. So, and we'll try and remember to do that as well. Everybody gets patched to fix the potholes in the center square. And then there's 25 other or 24 other things that are just in different locations depending on which card you get. So, and while I'm paused here, I want to thank all of our Patreon supporters for supporting this endeavor that we're doing here. We know that you have a choice in independent media, and we thank you for flying Air Chicago Corner. If you'd like to support Chicago Corner, you can head to patreon.com/Chicago Corner. And also for as little as $5 a month, you have the opportunity, if you want, to come on and be a guest on Chicago Corner. You can give us your 2 cents.
Guest host.
So, I think we already have a few of our Patreon supporters already above that $5 mark. So, if you're wanting to do it, let us know, and we'll see if we can get you on the show and talk about all the stuff, because we know you guys got stuff to talk about. All right, back to the thing.
We reached out to General Iron's parent company, RMG. No word yet from company spokespeople. At City Hall, Julian Cruz, WGN News.
Thank you, Julie.
All right.
Hi, everyone. Matt
Whoops. Okay. And then I got a little more. We just got this video from the rally. Okay, I think it's on a loop now. Okay, so yeah, here they are, wearing their different capes. Says stop General Iron, deny the permit again, let us breathe. I can't read that other one. Stop dumping on the southeast. There's a flag there that I can't make out, and then it says we deserve clean air. Yeah. So there's that story.
What else? Kathy's going to be the first one to come on instead of Dominic.
All right, Kathy needs a webcam. Yeah.
What about your What about your smartphone? You can probably connect with the camera on your smartphone, Kathy. We'll have to help guide you through that.
Yeah, we'll have to work on that.
We will.
Okay.
Kathy,
So
hold on. Kathy, email me what kind of smartphone you have off the show, and I'll figure out how we can set that up.
sounds like a plan. Okay. So those videos are in our show notes, along with the article that gives the background on the judge overruling the city denial of the Southeast Side Metal Shredder permit to operate, which is the entire reason for them doing this City Hall rally. And finally, here we are. Finally at the real breaking news, Jerry.
Uh-oh.
We got the real breaking news. Okay, the other real
other breaking news. Yeah, like Ed. No. Save it for later. Well, here it is.
I'm doing it.
Ed's priority story tonight, everybody.
Vienna Beef is reopening the restaurant corporate headquarters at the former Bucktown factory over on Damon. Now, some of you in Chicago might be familiar with that location. They closed it down. They were gonna turn it into, I think, a golf course or something, or a driving range, and that fell through.
Heaven forbid.
So here we are. Vienna Beef Plaza is what they're calling it. Will include offices for the hot dog brand and additional retail space. The restaurant is slated for a spring 2024 opening, and you can see there's a rendering here. We don't have to go deep into this story because I know Jerry's like, dude, we don't need to do this. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So, and for those of you. Yes. Yeah, that gets the breaking news wing clip there.
It's a food. It's the food focused breaking news clip.
Yeah, it's breaking food.
Breaking food.
breaking food news. So those of you concerned with the Bridgeport location, it's still going to be there.
Yeah.
So,
for those of you who are concerned with it, I, on the other hand,
I don't care.
Exactly. But for those of us who like the barbecue and grill on weekends and parties and stuff, the Vienna Beef Factory, they have an outlet. They have stores where you can get all the really good hot dogs and sausages and Italian beefs and all that stuff. And so while they're not paying me to advertise for this, I just thought it was kind of cool breaking news that they're actually coming back to their original location. So there's that story. And see, that didn't take too long either, Jerry. That was like 2 minutes. And you got to mock me several times. So that was very successful in my book. Okay, yeah. I mean, look, you guys, some of you who are following along with the show notes are going to go, man, they got so many stories in here. I don't know. I mean, but
who's they?
I don't know. Those knuckleheads in Chicago. See, they're gonna blame you regardless of who put the show notes together. So, but no, you know what? Blame me. I'll take credit for Tuesday's show notes. Okay. Chicago's a big market for AM radio, but electric vehicles loom as a buzzkill. And when I saw this headline, my first thought was, well, could it be because, when you run electric appliances, sometimes the AM radio gets that weird buzzing noise and stuff, but that's not what they're talking about.
What are they talking about, Ed?
I'm glad you asked, Jerry. It says AM radio has a decades-long history in Chicago, but the industry faces the prospect of losing easy access to listeners in their car. And this comes from David Roeder of the Chicago Sun-Times. And you know what? I'm going to leave it on this photo and open the story in another tab because that's better to do for production's sake. And yes, I know I'm talking about how the sausage is made, which kind of calls back to the previous story. See what I did there?
Yes.
Okay.
I was trying to find something for that, but
so that's a picture of Jim Stagg, who was a DJ at WCFL in 1966. At WCFL became a station called WLUP, which also no longer exists.
That was one of the great Chicago stations too. Well, both of them were.
Yeah. So the radio industry is dealing with a bad case of static. Some automakers plan to remove AM radio from new electric vehicles, but a number of legislators and the broadcast industry are pushing to pass a bill that would keep AM radio in cars. Actually, this is a story I pulled up because I thought, well, if Lainey wanted to stick around with us, this would be one that would interest her. But either way, if she decides she wants to watch the rest of the show at home, and I'm sure she is watching right now, right?
I hope so.
You know, who wouldn't keep watching the show after that blockbuster alien UFO story we did at the front end of it, right?
Yep.
But here we go. The issue will impact drivers in Chicago, a market with among the most AM loyal listeners in the country, probably because of WGN radio, if I had to guess, because it's one of the oldest radio stations in the nation. The city has a decades-long tradition of local programming, and thanks to its central location and stations with 50,000-watt signals spanning most of the country at night, Chicago's voice has been widely heard since radio was invented. Yeah, some of you may not even realize, some people don't listen to radios anymore. Everybody's streaming from their phone, but AM radio transmitters, like they said, would reach most of the country at night. You could tune in and listen to WGN radio from several states away at nighttime.
And all kind of staticky, but it's kind of cool.
And if you had, and if it was like super overcast with like a whole string of clouds between the states, you could get it in really good in places like Upper Michigan, which is where I went to school, went to college. So I was shocked to learn that I could actually listen to WGN once in a while when it was completely overcast. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome. How do you do? I mean, this was before the internet took over with streaming music and radio and stuff. This is how people communicated. You know, it's not a shock to me that people want to keep this type of information transmission around, because who knows what's going to happen to the internet when all hell breaks loose and the aliens decide to shut us down.
Well, wait, when what happens?
When all hell breaks loose and the aliens decide to shut our internet down.
Hold no cars. Hold no cars. UFO landed on Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, see, that's what happens first. That's like the first sign. Like, oh man, they're going to shut down our Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It says, okay. Let me get to the part where they talk about, here it is. A bipartisan group of representatives has sponsored a resolution that would order federal regulators to mandate AM radios in new cars. Now, if they're putting radios in, I would imagine, because otherwise they shouldn't like require them to have radios if people don't want radios in their car, right?
Do you remember the days of Larry Lujak and Stephen Gary?
I do.
I finally put a finger on what I want Chicago Corner to be that I think we're kind of maybe accomplishing.
Mm.
A cross between Stephen Gary and David Letterman. With a little bit of political incorrectness of Jimmy Dore.
Yes, and if you're just joining us, welcome to the 50,000-watt internet blowtorch known as Chicago Corner. Tune in on YouTube, Rockfin. Watch us later on Odyssey. Tune in live on Twitter and Facebook and Jerry's LinkedIn account.
And our Twitter and Facebook.
And you can also watch us on ChicagoCornerTV.com. Okay, that was kind of weird. I don't know where that came from. Actually, I do know where that came from because I used to do college radio. That was a fun time too. Some of you may not know. And I know I'm going off the rails again because it's Tuesday. I had a college radio show in college during the 90s when grunge music came out. And so what we used to do is we used to try to find the next hit, and then the local rock station used to steal that hit from us, and then we had to find the next one. It was a battle between college radio and local rock radio to get the music out first. So that was a fun time in my life. So radio always has a great place.
Which is probably what inspires your abilities here.
I think so. I think it helps. I think it definitely helped to get a little bit of that show presentation experience, even though that was, audio version. Now video is a whole other thing because you guys can see me. So I got to behave. Sort of. So, So, that's pretty much it. It's that Congress is going to try to make sure that automakers keep AM radio in the car radios, which I think is a good thing.
You know what I'd like to see what I'd like to see lawmakers do with automakers is prevent all of this fucking subscription fee service in vehicles that now have computer controlled chips where they install a heater in your seat, but then you have to pay extra. You have to renew the heat. You haven't heard about this?
I heard something about them doing that in luxury cars that I can't afford, so I wasn't too concerned about it.
Well,
but you got to rent everything now.
Just wait. They're doing it in luxury cars because people that can afford it don't complain about it, but that's just the trial balloon. Yeah. Pretty soon, every car nowadays is operated with a computer. Oh, and what are they going to charge you extra for after they heat your bum? Power steering. You have to pay extra for your power steering because
I imagine a really terrible dystopia where people get in their car in the middle of winter and you have to pay extra to get heat.
Well, here's the other thing, Ed, that a lot of people have brought up and there's a reason I brought this up, as you mentioned. Great lawmakers are focusing on the AM radio thing, but there's a lot of speculation that these computer controlled cars now are literally going to shut down the car if you miss a payment.
Yeah. In fact, I think they're already doing that.
Yeah.
So,
we are in a utopian society.
Yeah. Well, my current car is on its last legs, but it's more than 20 years old. And fortunately, that may actually, if I'm able to keep it rolling along for a few more years, maybe I'll be able to survive the apocalypse. If the shocks hold out.
It's why I hang on to my 2001 Jeep Wrangler. I do not want one of these modern computerized cars where suddenly we're beholden on the auto manufacturers to basically treat us like children and tell us what extra we have to pay for after we've already paid the astonishing amount of money it costs to buy a car to begin with, for all these extra perks like your seat gets heated in the winter, or maybe they'll start charging extra. You have to pay them a subscription fee to get heat in your vehicle in the winter, because if you don't pay their subscription fee, you don't get heat.
Yeah.
So while AM radio is all good and well, priorities with all the other actual important stuff.
Yeah, look, our government's all over the place.
Yeah.
Our local government has to deal with all kinds of things like, why aren't the park splash pads on yet, Jerry?
Yeah.
The parents are frustrated. Splash pads at parks have opened on Memorial Day in years past, parents said. The park district began turning splash pads last week, but it will take 3 weeks for all of them to be turned on.
Why is this so hard?
Here's my speculation on this is that maybe they're checking all of them individually one at a time for lead.
No, they're not.
Why? No. I mean, I would.
Well, dude, that's the law. You're right. That's what they should be doing, and that is a reasonable explanation for. But they're not. Oh. Do you assume?
You think it's just a feckless bureaucracy that's holding them up? That's possible.
How are they going to test these splash pads for lead to begin with? And are they going to dig up the ground around these splash pads before they turn them on?
Well, what they have to do is turn them on, and then they have to take water samples, and then they have to test them. So every one of them has to be turned on.
Are you giving them too much benefit?
I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but I'm saying that's what they should be doing if they're making it take so long.
Right, but I'm sure it's not. What did the article provide any explanation?
Let's see. Actually, I didn't even read the article.
You didn't read the article.
They say. Well, I just saw the headline and I was like, "Yeah, that's probably."
That's a good article. Let's throw that one up and figure it out as we go along.
With summer weather here and school soon out, parents across the city are eager to take their kids to the park to cool off and be outside, but have been disappointed to see many of the park splash pads still off. Samantha Perez of Dunning wanted to take her 2-year-old daughter to one of the 2 parks close to her home, but both spray features have not yet been turned on there yet, she said. Usually water spray features at the parks open Memorial Day and last through Labor Day, according to parents in several mom blogs. Ooh, there's mom blogs? About water fun in the city. It's really frustrating, especially with wanting to go on a walk and cool off at the park, Perez said. In the suburbs, they have all their stuff on already. Crown Fountain downtown is already on. They should be on here. Okay, let's see. Michael Lemon, spokesperson with the Park District, said Friday crews began activating spray features last week, but that turning them all on takes about 3 weeks. But they don't say why.
So why did they start 3 weeks early to meet their Memorial Day opening, Mr. Lemons?
Well, what was 3 weeks ago? I mean, we got to look and see what else was going on in the news then.
There's nothing happening in the news would have delayed them from getting a head start, so they were open by Memorial Day, June 23rd.
The schedules
but they're saying the date is later than usual, so this is not normal.
Okay. Well, is there an explanation?
No.
No transparency. No transparency from Chicago Park District supervisors or signs explaining when the splash pads will be turned on, has parents further angered, and many have taken to Facebook mom groups to air their complaints, get answers on which splash pads may be open, and offer alternative ways to cool off.
I know why they're not focusing on it, because all of the park infrastructure is too busy getting NASCAR set up downtown.
Oh, that could be it. It's that they're distracted. They're distracted by NASCAR.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not seeing it here. Yeah, it's all it is just a bunch of quotes.
There's no explanation.
It's just a bunch of quotes from parents who were upset about it and talking about how other places have theirs turned on already. And I'm like, okay.
It's an article that goes on and on and on and doesn't explain anything. Much like, oh, that's not the next story. I was going to talk about the Humboldt Park Nazi, which we'll get to. Update on that. But this other story that's
you wanted to do this one first? Okay.
Yeah. No, I think we should, because I found this story, I think, around the same time that you did.
Yeah.
A friend sent it to me, and I was just like, yeah, of course. Everybody who's on social media, on Twitter, complaining about the fact that we're too critical of the police and the police aren't getting this and they're not getting that, and we're not being fair to them. So, like the Twitter account of one Chicago contrarian who's constantly making excuses and carrying water for the Chicago Police Department. I said, oh, like this example of one of Chicago's finest? Take it away, Ed.
Yeah. This Chicago cop got out of 44 tickets by saying over and over that his girlfriend stole his car. Damn, I should have thought of that.
The headline should be by lying and lying to the court under oath and providing false information that he doctored with signed statements and false police reports.
Well, I'll say this. I could say that maybe 1 out of the 44 tickets is believable that maybe his girlfriend did steal his car, and since
They
it
don't
worked
make
the
that
first
statement,
time,
no,
I'm just saying what probably happened is his girlfriend stole his car. He got out of the ticket the one time and said,
Dude,
"Well, I'll
I
just
read
keep
the
doing it until they tell me I can't."
No, I read the article. That isn't what happened. What
that's
happened
not
was his father had. Well, read the article, man. His father had a history of fraud. Also, his father used to lie and do shit, so he just followed his father's example.
Yeah.
So no, this was just a piece of shit that figured because he's in the department and he has access to the police reports and he can doctor up, he can take them to court, and he didn't identify in court that he was a police officer either. To any of these administrative law judges, of which it was like a revolving door. He didn't get the same. He wasn't getting the same administrative law judges all the time to present this bogus information to. He was a liar. He is a liar. He's a disgusting example of what we don't need in the police department. While everybody else
What an asshole.
hit with fines for going 2 or 3 miles over the limit, this guy constantly got out of all these tickets lying. So go into the article.
So sure. Chicago police officer Jeffrey Kriv used the same alibi to contest dozens of traffic tickets over the years. Deeper look at his career sheds light on Chicago's troubled history of police accountability. And this comes from Block Club Chicago and apparently the Chicago Tribune.
That's the article. I saw the Tribune article first.
Okay. So each time he stood before a Chicago traffic court judge and told his story, the judge asked his name. Jeffrey Kriv, he said, that was true. Then he'd raise his right hand and get sworn in. What came next was also consistent. Well, that morning I broke up with my girlfriend and she stole my car. Kriv, who had been ticketed for running a red light, testified in January 2021. Yeah, I broke up with my girlfriend earlier that morning, had a knockdown, drag-out fight, verbally, of course.
Of course.
Verbally.
We know it. Yeah, right. If it actually...
I don't know where this accent's coming from, but I'm running with it.
If it actually happened, it would have been physically, but I digress.
Yeah. Well, statistically, yes. She took my car without my knowledge, he told a different judge when fighting a speeding ticket in August 2021. I broke up with my girlfriend that day, and she took my car without my knowledge. I didn't get my car back for like 3 days, but it was her driving the car, he said, while contesting a speeding ticket once again under oath in May 2022. The excuse worked, just as it had many times before. At the ticket hearings, Kriv often provided what he said were legitimate police incident reports as evidence of the car thefts. They had officer names and badge numbers, and he explained that he got the reports at police headquarters. So basically, now this is a literal conspiracy.
He falsified.
This is RICO.
He falsified police reports. Yeah.
This is RICO.
This is such a crock of shit.
It is a crock of shit, and it is RICO. It's racketeering, because he's now it's not just him, but he's getting fellow officers to go along with this bullshit.
I don't know that he got that. So here's where I'm not clear. I don't know that he got the fellow officers to do it. I think my understanding from having read the article previously was that he just knew the names of his fellow officers and their badge numbers and put them on the report.
Oh, so then he's just hoping they're not going to call him out on his bullshit.
Right.
Okay. All right. So we'll just
see. I read the article ahead of time, Ed.
Well, I figured you did. I saw the headline and I was like, okay. Yeah, it's like, I'm not shocked by that.
Well, I read this article. That's why I threw it in our Slack. I'm like,
I think I actually read the first couple paragraphs. I mean, that's typically all I have time for when I'm working my 9 to 5. But yeah, this is fun to actually read right now, though. So,
but keep going. But keep going.
Oh, I will.
This is where
I will, Jared.
Even better.
But Kriv did not let on that he himself was a Chicago cop. He's
Blowjob!
as bold as
it's an important thing to leave out.
Yeah, kind of. As bold as he was when fighting his tickets, he was equally brazen in his professional life. He attracted a remarkable number of complaints from citizens he encountered, and even from other officers. And just as he did in his personal life, he defended himself vigorously against the allegations. Kriv doesn't register as one of Chicago's most notorious corrupt cops. Those who tortured suspects for confessions or shook down drug dealers, but his on-duty conduct regularly flouted rules and disrupted lives. Once, he punched a handcuffed man in the back of his patrol car, records show. But given Chicago's long-standing and dramatic shortcomings in police discipline, none of his on-duty misconduct cost him his badge and gun. It took a tip to an outside agency and questions about Kriv's testimony as a private citizen in traffic court to unravel his career. A spokesperson for the Chicago Police Department would not comment for this story or answer any questions. There's a shot.
Of course they wouldn't.
We aren't commenting on anything that we cannot confirm or deny that absolutely did not happen.
Much like they wouldn't comment on why it took in a year's time they didn't bring in the Humboldt Park Nazi for mental evaluation.
Yeah, and
they don't have an answer for anything, Ed. They just, I see nothing, I know nothing, I hear nothing. Except we fear for our lives, and then we shoot people.
It's respect my authority club, basically. And it's never been more obvious.
Literally, so many of them operate like they're an illegalized gang. Actually, I'm sorry, no. So many Chicago police officers don't operate like they're an illegalized gang, but that is the attitude that the Fraternal Order of Police promotes, which is separate from part of the operations of CPD, but not officially part of CPD. It's the attitude that's fostered and nurtured by the Fraternal Order of Police. So,
yeah. Oh, we got a quote from his lawyer. Oh, great. Okay. You want to do the lawyer voice, or should I do the lawyer voice?
No, you can do it.
I'll do it. A lawyer for Kriv, informed of the reporting by ProPublica and the Chicago Tribune, said, "Many of the facts that you compose are incomplete or not true," though he did not say what was inaccurate. The lawyer,
What an asshole.
Yes. The lawyer, Tim Grace, said that Kriv had received nearly 150 commendations and recognitions and had earned 2 awards for saving lives. Officer Kriv has served his city with honor for over 25 plus years, Grace said. And there's a video? I don't know if we need to play that video.
I'm trying to get the Tribune article up that was shared with me that goes into more detail about the example his father set for him. Which
let me see.
I don't know if it's in. Oh no, it is.
I'm looking to see what this video is.
Okay.
Oh, okay. There's actually some sound in some of this.
Yeah, but here's his get. Okay, you run it. But there's so much more information that you're going to come into after this video that just completely is astonishing that his lawyer would say any of what he said with a straight face.
Oh, I'm not going to play the whole thing. I just want to play this little part here.
Well, that morning, I broke up with my girlfriend and she stole my car. I had a police report done that morning, as a matter of fact. So it doesn't surprise me that she granted the red light.
Oh, okay. So you're being there for
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, I broke up with my girlfriend only that morning. We had a knockdown, drag-out fight, verbally, of course. She took my car without my knowledge. I did file a police report that day. I had to go down to headquarters and get a copy of it over here.
Why do all Chicago cops talk like John Wayne Gacy used to talk?
I don't know, but it makes my job a lot easier.
I broke up with my girlfriend that day, and she took my car without my knowledge. I did call the police, had a police report filed, which I do have a copy. I didn't get my car back for like 3 days. But it was her driving the car.
Well, that was entertaining.
Well, it gets better in the
There's
Tribune
more.
article. Yeah, here's his troubles begin. His life starts unraveling once it's discovered what a fucking lying phony he is.
His troubles began almost immediately. In 1996, Kriv was sworn in as a Chicago police officer. The first complaint about him came about 8 months later while Kriv was still a probationary hire. A man said Kriv broke his car window with a flashlight while directing traffic.
Chicago's finest.
Kriv was not disciplined in that incident.
They never are. They never are.
Supervisors reprimanded him. A few months later, however, after Kriv failed to notice there was a marijuana cigarette on the back seat of his squad car.
Well, how'd that get there?
Well, that's legal now. But still.
Well, if he was driving it, do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Well, how'd that get there?
How'd that get there? But there was more to come, records show. Being rude, offensive, or physically abusive, flipping someone off, and writing in a police report that one woman was, quote, white trash and a, quote, raving lunatic.
This is what we want all our cops to aspire to.
Is this what he's getting commendations for?
Probably. And Catanzaro was probably the one giving them out.
Yes, I'm awarding you a commendation for outstanding example of a corrupt Chicago cop stereotype.
He was held in contempt of court and arrested after he flung papers into the air and called the judge's ruling a joke. He apologized in court the next day, and the contempt charge was vacated. An assistant deputy superintendent recommended against removing his police powers after the incident, records show. In another case, a different judge ordered him removed from a courtroom after he wouldn't stop talking. Most officers face only a handful of complaints over the course of their careers, but at least 92 misconduct complaints were filed against Kriv, according to the city and police disciplinary records compiled and analyzed by the Tribune and ProPublica. So naturally, he kept his job while lying about his 44 speeding and red light tickets. Even more exceptional, about 28% of the complaints against Kriv were found to have merit, compared with only about 4% of complaints against all Chicago police officers going back decades.
See, he's the perfect example of what not to hire. This is the kind of terrible behavior that we don't want in our police.
Oh, but it gets better, Ed. In 2005, after a city streets and sanitation department employee towed his illegally parked personal car, Kriv sent a letter via the city's interoffice mail system threatening to ticket the cars of street and sanitation workers in retaliation. He was suspended for 20 days. Why wasn't he just fucking fired? You're gone. You're out. You're fired.
Literally, he's operating like the police are the mob. And they kind of are. If they're like this, if the rest of them are like this, this is why we're like, look, you see bad apples in your department, and they're all like this. These are what needs to go. So when they threaten to leave the police department, when an African American mayor goes in, tell them, go ahead, sayonara, see you later. Sad to see you go. No, not really.
Okay, so, this article goes on and on and on, but I referenced his father. Okay, so this guy grew up in Highland Park, too.
Oh, great. Even
outside of his job in his chutzpah in traffic court, Kriv's history is notable. While Kriv was growing up in Highland Park, his father, where do you think he learned it, Ed? His father, an attorney, funded a messy fraud scheme, survived an assassination attempt meant to silence him about it, and was sent to federal prison for a second fraud racket that involved sending falsified accident claims through the mail, according to court records at the National Archives. Kriv's father testified at trial in the first fraud case and did not face charges for his role in that scheme. Kriv then attended the University of Iowa for 6 years. A university spokesperson said he never graduated, though he claimed that he had in an application for another city job in 2013. Cribb's attorney did not respond to questions about his educational history. They're like scraping the shit off the bottom of the barrel to hire at CPD in too many cases. Not all, but too many.
I'm seeing this one a little further down. But one woman sued him over her 2015 drunken driving arrest after she was acquitted at trial. The lawsuit alleged that Cribb falsely arrested her and made false statements against her. Cribb denied the allegations. Quote, he would lie under oath for a piece of bubble gum. The woman, who spoke on condition of anonymity for fear of retaliation from Cribb, told a reporter.
Insane.
This guy was a piece of work.
And he's still, and look at how long he was allowed to continue serving as a police officer, entrusted with the responsibilities and privileges of being a police officer.
Oh, and here's the part where, I'm like, why the hell didn't they get rid of him? When other cops complained, Cribb's conduct as a cop stands out in yet another way. Even other cops complained about him. Internal affairs records show that a police lieutenant filed a complaint against Cribb in 2016, accusing Cribb of failing to arrest an off-duty sergeant who was involved in a crash, even though the sergeant was unsteady, was slurring his speech, and had urinated in his pants. Quote, wasted, according to a police report. Cribb was suspended for 15 days for violating 5 department rules in that incident.
How many suspensions do you get? I mean, in baseball, it's 3 strikes, you're out.
It's like time. I mean,
this guy was operating for decades.
It's like I'm nearly speechless because I'm just looking at all of this stuff and going, how the hell did this guy keep his job so long?
His police partner once reported that he made her get out of their squad car after an argument, forcing her to walk more than a half mile back to their station. Investigators concluded there wasn't enough evidence in that case to discipline Cribb. What the fuck is wrong with supervisors at CPD? In 2014, supervisors, including the head of a DUI task force that Cribb was on, filed a complaint against Cribb alleging that he disobeyed commands from a higher-ranking officer and impounded a car without justification after a traffic crash. Over the other officer's objections, Cribb declared that the driver of the car involved in the crash was drunk, handcuffed him, and put him in the back of his squad car, according to accounts from the driver, Jamie Garcia, and other officers. He also ordered Garcia's Nissan Altima towed and impounded. He kept telling me, I know you're drunk. I know you're drunk. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. I was scared, Garcia said in an interview. The officers on the scene filed the complaint against Cribb. For some reason, he was trying to put a false arrest on this guy. I apologized to him, said, sorry you had to go through this. I told him about filing a complaint, said retired Lieutenant David Blanco, the supervisor that night. After its investigation, the department acknowledged Cribb was wrong to have impounded Garcia's car, knowing there would be no DUI charges against him. Cribb ultimately wasn't disciplined for his behavior that night, once again benefiting from the police department's feeble accountability system, which has long been marked by delays, red tape, and lax punishment. As we go into our next story, Ed, about the lack of response in Humboldt Park, this is why it happens, man. Do you think anybody's going to be accountable for why it was in the course of a year 40? So since our Saturday show, everybody, we discovered 40 complaints were filed against John Litsiardarkas, the guy.
His name, it's come out, at least the mainstream, they're called him Lichard now. And apparently he changed his name to Litsiardarkas. And I'm wondering if maybe he, somewhere along the lines discovered that that's what his original family name was and decided to change it for whatever reason.
Point being, 40 complaints against John Lichard in his neighborhood. The police ignored him. Alderwoman Emma Mitz ignored him. The state ignored it. The neighbors were trying to get this guy mental health assistance, and the cops ignored it for a year. I know that no one in that department in that district is going to be held accountable for why 40 calls were put in and nothing was done about, not even the danger to himself, the danger he presented to the community. How do you, 40 calls, guys up on his roof in his Nazi perch. The point I brought up Saturday, Ed, which I was kind of being, a little bit facetious about, but we know that if they see illegal construction, they'll come by and slap that orange sign up and say, "We got to stop construction now." That perch was up for over a year, and you know what? The neighbors in that community also contacted zoning to say there's this tower that's up there that was never cleared, no permits, no nothing, and they ignored it too. So, I mean, I'm kind of jumping into our next story, but it comes to the issue of accountability. This guy's not accountable. The cops in the Lashard situation aren't going to be accountable, and it's just going to keep going on and on and on.
Yeah, and further down in the story, they talk about how he really any number of his disciplinary actions should have been a flag to basically fire him.
You're out. But you know what? His police union, you know what it was, Ed? They protected him.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That's what it comes down to. He's protected. He can be unaccountable. He knows he can just operate with impunity to the degree where he decided to defend 40 camera tickets while not only perjuring himself, but creating false police reports. So where's this guy now? Did they finally get rid of him, or is he on suspension?
I closed that window.
I mean, I'm scrolling down to see where he is. Where is he now? They go more into his tickets, blah, 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 blah. My girlfriend got into an argument. The system's like a joke. Citywide, it's rare for people to succeed in getting their tickets dismissed, even when you're citing local as well as state municipal ordinances, as I have. In a typical year, the city issues about 1 million automated camera tickets for speeding and red light violations. People contest about 4% of those tickets, and about 1 in 10 analysis of city ticket data. There's no indication the police department knew how often Kriv was contesting his tickets in court. There's also no indication in records that the girlfriend he used as his alibi.
Oh, this sack of crap retired. He retired in mid-January after getting 3 more speeding tickets, and he paid the fines, and then he got 3 more speeding tickets. So we know he doesn't retired on his own terms.
And we know that he doesn't have a girlfriend. And since 2013, he'd contested 44 tickets by saying his girlfriend had stolen his car. All 44 had been dismissed. Why doesn't the Office of Inspector General, isn't there any way to recover or press charges against this guy for perjuring himself in court and creating right? I'm sure his union protects him on that too, Ed.
I want to go
January
to the
12th.
next story.
Okay, so really quickly.
Okay.
He was eyeing retirement. Let's get to that quick detail to resolve this one.
Yeah.
He was told he'd gain another. Okay, as Kriv, who was 56, he's my age, well, a year younger, was defending himself in traffic court last year, he was also eyeing retirement, going back and forth with the policeman's annuity and benefit fund of Chicago to sort out his pension benefits. He was told he'd gain another year of seniority and a larger pension if he stayed on the force until January 15th, while he was lying and using false reports in court. On January 12th, the department collected his badge and stripped him of police powers. On January 14th, Kriv got another speeding ticket. On January 17th, Kriv retired. Remember, he was told if he stayed on the force until January 15th, he'd gain another year of seniority for a larger pension, and it was on the 17th that he retired. The next day, Kribbs' car was ticketed again for speeding on January 31st. Cook County prosecutors charged Kribb with 4 counts of perjury and 5 counts of forgery, all of them felonies, for allegedly lying to judges under oath and providing fictitious police reports in the 4 traffic ticket in 4, not 44, 4 traffic ticket cases. The girlfriend story, prosecutors alleged, was fake. Prosecutors calculated that by getting out of 44 tickets, Kribb saved himself $3,665. The state's attorney office declined to comment about its case against Kribb. Kribb emailed his pension board the day after he was charged and released on $10,000 bond, writing, "When do I start getting my pension checks? And does it come bi-weekly or once a month?" No, I'm sorry, Ed. Let me read it. When do I start getting my pension checks? Does it come bi-weekly or once a month? His pension started at about $6,000 a month, according to the board.
You gotta be fucking kidding me.
The inspector general whose office helped build the case against Cribb declined comment for this story. In a news release about the charges, she said the truthfulness and credibility of police officers is foundational to the fair administration of justice and to CPD's effectiveness as a law enforcement agency. Jesus fucking Christ, man. When reached by phone, Cribb said he didn't want to talk because nobody gets a fair shake with the media. And his attorney had advised him not to say anything. When it is all said and done, this will be dismissed, he said. There's nothing to it.
Yeah, really? Nothing? As in everything? Man, what a sack of crap.
No, Ed, he's a piece of shit. Let's say it. What a piece of shit.
He's both of those. All right. We're getting into it because we're...
What an asshole.
We're getting into this, so we're still covering it. His name was John Lichard, and the quote in the title says, John killed himself? Hours after police standoff, man gets voicemail about brother he hadn't seen in 15 years.
And why? I feel bad. So, as much as I'm not going to condone the racist, behavior of a Nazi, how long was he like this? It seems like he had some kind of a breakdown and disconnect. And I really wonder, with the mental health issues and the fact that he'd been estranged from his family, was everything we saw this past year just his complete break with reality that he wasn't getting paid for? Was he like that before?
It's part of why I wanted to do this follow-up today, because along with this story, I found some other stuff that probably other people may not have on their radar. And I think that maybe that's what happened, is that he has not always been like this. I think that it's just the last handful of years. It's some switch got flipped inside his head, and not for the better.
Like Tourette's.
So the quote says, "It was shocking," said Glenn Lichard. "I just wish the SWAT would have called me. I would have gotten on the phone with him or gone down there or something."
For the past year.
Yeah.
For the past year, they could have figured out who. Look, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ed, but I mean, this just boils my blood. For the past year, they've been ignoring this guy. Number one, why weren't any social work caseworkers involved in assessing the situation? To number two, figure out if he had family, where he had family, and reach out to them, which they didn't.
Yeah.
To get him the help he needed.
Yeah, so this story comes from the Chicago Sun-Times by Mary Norcole and Tom Schuba, and this was from yesterday. And that was a photo. That's a photo of John Lichardakis, or John Lichard, holding what appears to be a gun Friday during a standoff with the SWAT team in the 4100 block of West Chicago Avenue in Humboldt Park neighborhood. Now, that's an Uzi style weapon, if it's a weapon.
It's a weapon, because I read in some accounts that that's not a real weapon. It could have been a toy.
Could have been a water gun. But it's not improbable that he might have had one of those, or maybe a replica, because he is a Vietnam vet.
Well, Ed, maybe the police. Maybe the police still doesn't condone their dereliction of duty, but maybe they were able to assess that was not a real weapon, which is why they didn't go up there and stop him. I mean, if they had spotters that could see, no, it's a toy, he's just some raving lunatic up on the roof. And the thing that they described as a flamethrower was a propane tank that he was apparently like lighting a lighter in front of to like shoot flames. So he really didn't have what we know as a flamethrower. He basically had a makeshift flamethrower.
He had a propane torch.
Right. And that may have been a toy, which is why they weren't able to go in and get.
Well, you can use propane torches for any number of things. You can start barbecues. You can. If you're melting metal into a crucible or something,
although he did have a weapon since he shot himself, so we know.
So let me get this through this article here. Glenn Lichard woke up Sunday morning to a shocking voicemail about a brother he hadn't seen in nearly 15 years. "I woke up my wife and I said, 'Did she just say John killed himself?' Lichard told the Sun-Times, "I had to replay the message. He didn't know what nearly everyone in Chicago had seen Friday, when his brother John waved what appeared to be guns from the roof of a building in Humboldt Park, shouting racist threats, yelling obscenities at police, and flying an American flag upside down. After a standoff that lasted into early Saturday, his brother was found dead of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to Chicago police. It was shocking," he said. "I just wish the SWAT would have called me. I would have gotten on the phone with him or gone down there or something. I don't know if I could have helped him because I know he was in dire straits. He'd rather die than be a burden on anybody, and I think that's what he did."
Well, kudos to the brother who didn't step up and maybe do something to help the guy.
Well,
that's a really lame. That's a real lame denial of any kind of responsibility.
This is, this story really doesn't provide that much additional closure because we still have a lot of unanswered questions about this guy.
Yeah.
So it says his family had lost touch with him and didn't know he had recently changed his name from Lichard to Litsiardakis. Neighbors in the 4100 block of West Chicago Avenue, where the standoff took place, said he had been acting erratically for more than a year and recently placed an illuminated swastika on a makeshift tower of scaffolding on the roof. Quote, "He was level-headed. I don't know what happened," Lichard said. It must be talking about his brother. Maybe it was his way to scream out. Litsiardakis was raised in Humboldt Park and served in the Army during the Vietnam War, his family said, as I had suspected. He ran an auto shop for decades in the building on West Chicago. He was 67 when he died. Lichard and his daughter, Melody Lichard, described the man they knew as protective and funny, but they began to notice a recent shift on social media. Litsiardakis seemed to be battling paranoia about things like family and the government, but they had never seen anything anti-Semitic or racist in his speech or actions. And there he is, apparently with his daughter.
Wait, I thought, oh, no, maybe that's his niece.
Or his niece, sorry, his niece. That's his niece.
Yeah.
That's his niece. Okay. The family believes Litsiardakis' life took a turn for the worse after various financial woes and 2 marriages that ended in divorce, Melody Lichard said. So he was married twice. Like her dad, Melody said she also lost touch with Litsiardakis years ago when the matriarch of the family died. But she rekindled contact when he added her as a friend on Facebook roughly 5 years ago. So I guess he hadn't done much with his Facebook until the last couple of years. In 2019, their messages were, quote, normal, but through the last few months, he sent messages warning her to, quote, watch out for her parents. Quote, "The past 3 months, I couldn't even understand what he was saying," she said. Counterterrorism chief Larry Snelling told reporters Monday that none of the officers on the scene opened fire during the standoff. They recovered, quote, multiple weapons from inside the building. He couldn't provide a firm number, saying officials were still investigating. Now, because we're on a 30-minute delay with the police band,
yeah,
and the fact that it's very difficult to trust the word of law enforcement, I'm not taking their word for that.
I'm not either.
And also, I mean, I hate to go too tinfoil hat on there, but how many times did this guy get the thing in the arm? And may that have possibly caused some brain damage?
Oh, you talking about the jab?
I'm talking about maybe something that might have been jabbed into his arm.
I don't get the sense that this is a guy who would have accepted the jab, though, Ed.
Well, you don't know if he may. I mean, people get coerced into doing things, and who knows what his mindset was beforehand.
Right.
Regardless,
we've since seen what happened with Jamie Foxx, allegedly, that his stroke was complicated. People are claiming that his stroke was complicated by the jab.
Yeah, and we know without getting too deep into it, we know that there are people who have had side effects, and they are and some of them were heart related, some of them were stroke related, some of them are, other types of injuries or chronic illness. And so I don't think it's unreasonable to think that maybe that's in the realm of possibility.
We'll never know, Ed.
We'll never know. Because they'll probably cover it up if it is.
It will be interesting if the medical examiner, someone I saw on social media, said they'd be curious to see his toxicology report.
Yeah, I would too. And I'm curious if the guy was ever on any kind of meds for anything.
And if he was clearly off of them. Maybe he was. I mean, look, again, for this to be percolating for a year with no action, so another thing that they said, I was reading about, I think it's in the Slack, if I have my Slack open. Do you remember when I shared that one tweet about red flag laws? If ever there was a reason that there should be red flag laws, this John was the example. And apparently red flag laws might not, if I'm remembering the tweet that I shared, might not apply to those who are in law enforcement or who've previously served.
Let me see if I can find it.
Open up, if you can get the Slack open. I shared that link in the Slack, I think for the Tuesday show or in the general folder. But I also punctuated with boom. You see it? It's opening on this end.
I don't see it.
All right, let me look for it. Will you keep going, and I'll bring it up when I find it.
Okay. All right, so let's get to the rest of this. The location was very chaotic. There were a lot of things in there, Snelling said. The building more than likely has to be demolished. Sometimes, as previously reported, Litsiardakis had been the subject of more than 40 calls for service since January 2022, as Jerry mentioned, according to law enforcement. Snelling said officials are now looking into those calls and acknowledged there was a history there. Yeah, you think? However, when we arrived on the scene, when we knew that he was actively on the roof armed with a weapon, our SWAT team went out there immediately, he said. We did everything we could to de-escalate that situation. I don't think so. Because you wouldn't have gassed him, for one. Because if you guys had taken, we always hear about law enforcement saying how they're scouring people's social media to try and get information about people. They knew this guy's name. They could have found
his accounts are still up too with all of these.
They could have found his post and gotten a sense of where his mind was at, and they could have understand that, like I had mentioned on Saturday, this guy had issues with things in the clouds and in the skies, and so. When it clearly seemed like there was a paranoia going on, for you guys to gas his building would have is the absolute wrong thing to do with people doing stuff, irrationally, or having any kind of emotional outburst like this guy was having. And so we'll switch over really quick here. Plato Loco or at Dishtopia on Twitter. This is the Illinois red flag laws tweet that Jerry was letting us know about. It says Illinois red flag laws have exemptions for cops, troops, and private security. Libs got exactly what they wanted, they said, i.e. only people like Kyle Rittenhouse and John Litsiardakis will be armed legally.
Now, that's not a liberal policy, asshole. But no, and that was in response to something that Jinx Press had shared. What is the point of red flag laws if they're not utilized anyway? Police were called to the property over and over again. No one, not police, not the alderman, not any city official, lifted a finger to have his weapon removed, or if they did, they were ignored.
Yeah. So a lot of people they play this duopoly game where it's red versus blue, and the truth is it's just authoritarian versus the rest of us. And once you wrap your head around that, you will understand that it's not that kind of team sports. We gotta look out for the little guy
and each other. Now, Jinx Press also went on to say, a little harsh, but I mean, look, I have mixed feelings about this. We're not suggesting people need to waste sympathy on someone who spent his last days in a racist frenzy. Well, if there were unaddressed mental health issues, maybe we do. But many things can be true at once here, and we are profoundly, profoundly lucky he only ended up harming himself. This could have easily gone in another direction, which is why we broke in Saturday to talk about it.
Yeah. So, where am I at? Oh, that's where I'm at.
Everything about this is upsetting. As others have said, the city's response was stunningly incompetent. It's quite apparent, and this relates to the red flag laws, Ed, upon browsing the man's social media profiles, that this is a bit more complex than the roof Nazi narrative we all took part in. There are no excuses for displaying a swastika ever. This was also a person so far gone that intent was muddled. Send in the social workers, they joke. Well, you send police in dozens of times. They accomplish nothing, potentially encourage the guy's paranoid delusions. An entire neighborhood felt increasingly unsafe for over a year, and this was the end result.
Yeah. So,
red flag.
All right, that's enough of this Sun-Times article, but I just wanted to show you something else that I thought was interesting that I found. Apparently, years before he had his major psychic break, he participated in one of the art projects that Industry of the Ordinary does. They do video projects. I think they've got a Vimeo channel and stuff. But here I am on the Industry of the Ordinary page, and I'm scrolling down, and look who it is.
There he is.
Here he is in a pleasant Hawaiian pattern shirt, and I mean, you can't really make much out of this photo here. But the interesting thing is, if you go to the original web page, there's audio that plays along with this, and I'm just going to switch over to the audio here. He's on the front end of this audio that they did for this art project.
There's quite a few family restaurants.
No, Kathy, it was Jinx Press.
Let me back this up.
So really quickly to Kathy's comment, Jinx Press, everything that I recently read was from Jinx Press's Twitter page.
Yeah. All right, let me play that again, a little louder volume.
There was quite a few family restaurants, and then the area changed and everything subsided, basically family restaurants and businesses, everything became. Then you have the heating and air conditioning place that used to be next door to you here. Right next to me at 4140 was Metro Life Insurance.
Now, he sounds relatively sane in this. Yeah. I don't know when this was from. I couldn't find a year, but it can't be from very long ago.
Metropolitan Life Insurance. And next to another little building was a piano store. Actually, when I was a child, I used to drive down here to go to my dad's job and back and forth. And I used to sit in the back seat. I go, I like this area. I like to live here one day. And one day I did get a place here. Because, it's kind of secluded. There ain't a lot of traffic. I mean, as far as everything else, So I kind of thought about industrial living when I was young. I'm talking young kid, 7, 8, It's nice and quiet. Do what you want, paying away. Chi-Town restaurant is, what was it? That was a family little restaurant, like, a Greasy Spoon Grill, but they made decent food. A lot of breakfast. He would close at 2 o'clock. And the welfare office, that was across the street. There's a welfare office. That was a Social Security office.
I don't have the full context of this audio clip except to say that it sounds like he's basically just talking about his recollection of Humboldt Park over the years.
It seems like it's that website is a compilation of neighborhood testimonies regarding testimonies of people in the neighborhood recounting their experiences living there.
Yeah, so I was like, what the heck is this? And then audio started playing on the thing, and I'm like, that really sounds like him, except he's not swearing up a storm or talking about or saying the F word. And I'm like, This must be what he sounded like before whatever psychic break he had.
Yeah.
And I thought that was something interesting for all of us to hear. So, so there's
it places some other context with the fact that this was clearly someone who was in need of a lot of help, and society, the police department, law enforcement, the social workers, his older person, and the state. Very similarly in the story that Lainey was recounting earlier, all of the safeguards and safety nets that are in place to help people like that absolutely fail for everybody. Whether it's the girl with the DCFS story or this guy who clearly was dealing with some kind of psychotic break and became a danger to himself as well as his neighbors. No accountability from the people who we task with taking care of these things for us, that are supposed to be doing their jobs, while they're lying to get out of 44 speed cam or red light tickets and getting away with that they're not accountable for. Well, I mean, look, the hypocrisy across all levels, Ed, is what just blows me away. And I guess that's what it ultimately comes back to for us when we're talking about things here, the lack of accountability and the hypocrisy related to the fact that we're all supposed to be accountable, and we are. I'm not saying we should all dismiss our responsibilities and not be accountable or be held accountable, but those in positions of authority never are. Never are. And they're the ones who are tasked with, taking care of things.
Yeah, and very often there's a level of bureaucracy and red tape that exists in a lot of local governments that shouldn't.
Yeah.
And it creates problems when people actually reach out for help. And then, even we don't know what he did, whether he reached out for help or it's just one of those things where, he too much pride and he just, sank deeper and deeper and nobody saw the signs to help him. But I'm hoping that we can have better safety nets in this city and others, and use this as an example of how things failed to see how we can fill in those safety nets so people don't fall through the cracks.
I sadly don't think anything's going to change.
Oh, well,
we can hope.
It's all we can do right now, unless people are willing to band together to make change. So,
in the only way I think that we have left, Ed.
Collect your torches and go!
Yep. So, and I think we've reached the end of our show notes, actually. Our final story is just me reminding you that on Thursday, starting the Chicago Blues Festival in Chicago, it starts Thursday at 5:30 p.m. and runs through Sunday night. And Sunday night, Los Lobos is playing. So I want to try and make an effort to get over there on Sunday night for that, because Los Lobos is great. But every other performer at Chicago Blues Festival is going to be entertaining as well. You can guarantee to have a great time if you like blues music in Chicago, and it's free admission. So starting Thursday through Sunday over in Millennium Park. Free admission. The only difficulties you're going to have is getting down there. And we normally would recommend taking public transportation, and I still recommend that, but give yourself plenty of time to get down there, because you know how semi-reliable public trans is these days. But they have provided instructions that you should enter at Michigan Avenue and Washington Street, or Michigan Avenue and Madison Street, or Randolph Street at Monroe. And did I have a picture for that? I think I had a media link of the downtown map, because I wanted to take a look at the public transportation really quick here. Here we go. Okay, so basically, if you're taking the red line, you're going to have to get out at like State and Lake or State and Monroe. But what you might want to do is transfer from the red line over to the brown line or purple line trains and get out at Washington and Wabash or Adams and Wabash, because that'll get you a lot closer to Millennium Park. And then it won't be too much of a walk to go and get to one of the entrances over there. The Adams and Wabash lets you out right near the Art Institute of Chicago. The Washington and Wabash lets you out right around Millennium Park. And then, of course, you could always take a ride share, although those are super expensive. And that's all there is for tonight's episode of Chicago Corner. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to thank Jerry for putting up with my crap.
I didn't put up with crap.
And,
I just like to gently tease you.
I just mean my regular crap.
Your regular crap. And remember, if you're headed downtown...
Hold no cars. Hold no cars. UFO landed on Michigan Avenue.
So I think that relates to the State of Illinois building, although it could be just as easily applied to Soldier Field over on Museum Campus. UFO landed on Soldier Field.
Yeah, well, if we're lucky, they'll land in Millennium Park and they'll get to enjoy some fantastic music at the Chicago Blues Festival. Let's see, what else was there? I can't remember. If you want to support this channel, please support us at patreon.com/Chicago Corner. And you can find us at ChicagoCornerTV.com. It'll have links to all of our social media and places where we're streaming, like YouTube and Rockfin and Twitter and Facebook and Jerry's LinkedIn page. Actually, I don't have a link to your LinkedIn page, but you can just look for Jerry Vasilatos.
It's just my name. It's just my name.
I still like that beat. I think that's great. Where did we leave off? Oh, hold on a second. Flip back to the Tuesday here. Okay. And I want to leave. I want you all to join us on Friday for when Jerry is flying the ship. Hopefully not too close to the sun. And hopefully not crashing and getting mistaken as a spaceship from outer space.
That would be this. All right.
And I leave you with this these words of wisdom from Bowfinger.
Happy premise number one. Happy premise number one. There are no aliens. Happy premise number two. Happy premise number two. There is no giant foot trying to squash me. Happy premise number three. Happy premise number three. Even though I feel like I might ignite, I probably won't. So, what do we do? Keep it together. Keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together.
Good night, everybody.
Fuck this noise, man.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.